Hello, everyone. We are back with another episode of Tales from the Tavern. I hope you all are doing well tonight. Look at this beautiful crew of people that I have surrounding me tonight. I am very excited about this group. So we are going to go around and have everyone introduce themselves, and then I will share a little bit about how the stream will work for all the first-time viewers in chat. So, without further ado, Brian, we're going to start with you. Tell us a little about who you are and what you do and where we can find you on the internet.
Okay. So, I am Brian, otherwise known as Alakazam. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, a few other places. Pretty much anywhere you look up Alec_Azam, you'll find me. I am a professional DM. I write my own homebrew. I'm working on trying to put out my own modules. And most recently, I just put out a huge toolkit of pirate-themed stat blocks, classes, all sorts of mini adventure seeds, pirate-themed content for 5th edition D&D. Called that Treasures of the Pirate Court, and it's on my Ko-fi right now.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of information in chat, so you can drop him a follow on Twitter and things like that, so feel free to check out his stuff. We will go to Atomic Zero next.
Hi everybody, I'm Atomic Zero. You can just call me Atomic. I am a Twitch streamer taking a bit of a hiatus to focus on writing some TTRPG stuff for a new show that I'm going to be doing with 2012 Wolfblood in the chat. Hey Wolfblood, doing a sci-fi futuristic 5e using the Esper Genesis system that's going to be debuting after the turn of the new year. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at @TTV_Atomic Zero, and you can find me on Twitch eventually when I get back on there, at least for the show as well as for some variety streaming at twitch.tv/Atomic Zero.
Awesome. And Atomic has been here before, but not since we moved back to this channel, so I'm excited to have you here again.
Yeah, third time's the charm.
Right? That's what they say anyway.
Yeah.
And Ty, tell us a little about you.
Hi everybody, I'm Ty, Lot Even Star on Twitter and Twitch, and I'm the producer and primary content creator, well I was, over at Roll for Chaos. We had 2 shows that have just concluded. I happen to run, I think 4 weekly, 5 weekly over on that channel. We've got a talk show, we've got a variety like reaction show thing going on, news stories and things like that, and then we have 2 Aether and Steamworks games typically running at the same time, which is a system I created, and a Masks game, and what was the other one called? Monster Hearts every 3 weeks. So lots and lots of games that we run, and I happen to be a writer and producer of games and content as well. So yeah, artist. I did this stuff that's on the overlay here, and
all of it. It's all his.
So yeah, I wear many hats, and I confuse which ones are which all the time, and I'm a bit frantic half the time as well, because I'm really, really busy. Just finished a Kickstarter, going to be writing up another book, another expansion for my game, and running a whole bunch of one-shots in various communities, which some of these individuals will be in, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, and if you didn't back the Kickstarter, then that's too bad for you, because the game's really awesome.
Yeah, you missed out. The Kickstarter provided both the expansion and the main core book if you would back at the same time. But you can pick those up at Drive-Thru-RPG. The main book's there now, and then the expansion will be there right around April.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Ty's also been on this show before, and not since we moved back to this channel, so it's nice to have you back as well.
Nice to be back.
And a first-time guest this time is Penguin. So, Penguin, tell us a little about you.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm an old dog in the TTRPG space. Have game mastered a ton over the years, and sort of more importantly, for this subject, I have been writing my own TTRPG systems for over a decade now. I have never, up until now, I never thought about trying to publish them in any manner. But recently I have been deciding I should try to do that. So I am going to start refining and working on some of my systems so they can be shared outside of my, immediate friend group. And at the moment, my first project is actually a fan game. It's a game set in the universe of the Has-Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss indie animations, if you happen to be acquainted with those. So it's a game where you play as the forlorn souls in hell. It's much more cheerful than it sounds.
I was going to say, that actually sounds really fun. Awesome. Well, I'm glad it worked out to have you on tonight, so thank you for joining us. And Nick, we'll go to you. Also coming back for the first time since we moved back to this channel. So
Yeah, I am happy to be back here. So my name is Nick, and you may know me from Scry Society, which is a Twitch channel I started earlier this year, where I run charity one-shots, mostly using D&D. We've recently expanded into different TTRPGs. I'm actually, like Atomic, I'm currently on a little holiday hiatus as I just take a little bit of time to catch up with some things in my life. But you'll still see me around the community, maybe even doing a little bit of streaming here and there. I am also the community manager for Shard Tabletop, a virtual tabletop for D&D, where I published my first ever D&D adventure earlier this year called Into the Mists, which is a tier 1 level 3 to level 5 adventure where you get to send your party off into a spooky, scary swamp to recover a magical artifact. And lastly, I am a 2022 Jasper's Game Day ambassador. Program I'm very excited to be a part of. Jasper's Game Day, for anyone in chat who's not familiar, is a nonprofit focused on eliminating the stigma around talking about mental health, and they raise money to for suicide prevention and awareness efforts, usually using games just like we do at Scry Society. So I'm very excited. I don't know if this is my 4th or 5th time on Tales, but I'm very excited to be here with this great group.
yes, I'm excited to have you. And yes, if you are not familiar with Jasper's Game Day, definitely check them out. They do some great work over there. And Nick, congratulations on being an ambassador for them. That's great.
Thank you.
Very exciting. All right. So, for those of you who have never joined this stream before, I am Gamer Mom Luna. I'm the creator and host of Tales from the Tavern. And the way that this stream works is all of our questions come from chat. So, we've already got one that's been put in chat, so we will start off with that one in just a minute. But feel free to drop your questions right into chat. I have a moderator that will feed them to us directly, so don't worry about having to highlight or anything like that. I have a moderator scanning chat for all of those things. And if you have been here before and you've racked up some channel points, we do have the Ask My Question Next. So for 1,000 channel points, you can have your question bumped up to the top of the queue. So if there's a few before you and you want to get your question in, feel free to use that. There are 3 of those available every night. So feel free to give that a go if that, will be something you're interested in. So we're going to dive right in with the questions, and we've already gotten one that's come in from Ian, Geek Patriarch, in chat. Hello, Ian. Good to see you. And Ian is starting us off on a very sad note. Ian would like to know, what is the saddest moment you have had in a game you ran or played in?
Jeez. Ian coming in strong.
Right, I know. I already know my answer to this, and Ty knows the answer that I'm going to give because he was part of it. So I can dive in unless anybody else wants to go first.
Yeah, you go for it. I think I need a second to think.
Icebreaker, you can do it.
All right, I will dive in. So there was a game that I was playing actually with Ty back on another channel, and it was over a year ago now. And like life kind of had cropped up on me, and like I needed to back away from some of my streaming commitments, and so I needed to take some time and walk away from the game and deal with some of my own life stuff. And so this actually happened off stream. It was off camera, but we still like built it into the story because we had a room in our Discord server where we could sort of interact as the characters if we needed to kind of hash some stuff out behind the scenes. And so my character, Claudia, was a werewolf. We were playing a Savage Worlds World of Darkness crossover. And she was a werewolf, and sort of through the whole story just was always like, I don't even know why I'm here. I don't even know why I'm involved with you people. And just never really felt like she was meant to be part of the group. And so as a way to get out of the game, what ended up happening was there had been an episode that we played where one of the characters' weapons had, I can't now remember if it broke or something got stuck in it or jammed or whatever. Anyway, the weapon wasn't working. And so Claudia, being a werewolf, carried a gun, but she never used it because she didn't really need to. And so in the middle of the night, day, whatever, she went, and everybody else was sleeping because they were either, vampires or not around or whatever. And so she took her gun, left it on the bedside table of the character whose gun wasn't working, who had busted, with a note that just said, you can use this more than I can. And she just packed her stuff and left. And that was it. There was no goodbye, no anything. And for me personally, it was like this super devastating moment because I didn't really want to leave the game, but I really, I knew for me that was the best thing to do. And it broke my heart going through it. So it was really, really sad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I have one.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. It was when it was Vampire the Masquerade. We played the 20th anniversary edition of the classic Vampire the Masquerade, and my character, she was called Magnolia. It's one of the by far best characters I ever played. I really love, to this day I still love her. She was kind of a femme fatale kind of type of character, very, very charismatic, very attractive, very manipulative, and such. In particular, using her, feminine wiles to manipulate men, in particular. And but she eventually ended up having a real boyfriend. I mean, she had a lot of dalliances, but he was this one guy, and he seemed like such a dude, bro. So his name was Vance, and he was like this spoiled rich kid, sort of macho. And she looked at him and thought, "I own you. I can manipulate you so easily. You're just a type of guy. I just have to pretend to be the bimbo, and you will fall for me, and then I will have you wrapped around my finger." She later realized that he was manipulating her. He was playing this. He was very smart. He was as manipulative and sly as she was, and he had been playing this role because he had guessed at what type of character she was. So they were dancing around trying to manipulate one another, and in the end they became a couple because they were like, "You are the only person I ever met who was as twisted of a person as I am. You are as manipulative and basically psychopathic as I am." So they had a sort of very cute romance. It was the best in-game romance I ever had. I think it was like I sometimes stayed for 2 hours before the other went home. So me and the game master, the storyteller, could play long scenes about them, going on dates and being cute. It was, and then he just left.
Oh.
There was supposed to be a jump in time jump in game, where we were sort of going from these newly established neonates to we get some time to like establish ourselves and for very complicated reasons he just disappeared. She found out from third parties that he had left town. He didn't tell her anything. He was just gone. She had no idea if he would ever come back or when. And just because this romance has been so adorable, albeit adorable in a very creepy way, but for me as her, she was so sad, and she sort of immediately picked up this rebound guy. That was another player character. Who was this, kindly, kind but not very bright golden retriever of a man. She was, or rather, rebound guys in the plural, basically, because she was that kind of person. But it was to this day. I'm still playing Vampire with the same storyteller. We are going to start up a new campaign where one of the player characters is the child of Magnolia. So we have discussed what has happened in the 20 years that passed in game, and I realized that Vance is the only man Magnolia really loved. The only man she saw as an equal. And actually loved and not just used. So that he then came back and then he disappeared again because for convoluted reasons the player characters include and Vance for some reason I don't remember was turned back into humans, and Magnolia of course immediately got herself turned back to a vampire, but Vance chose to stay human. And left again, and didn't tell her where he was going. So yeah, that's.
It sounds like you learned a life lesson that vampires should never date ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Mine is less. It's not romantic in any way, but I played a. This is from the old D&D podcast I used to be on called Know Your Role, and I was playing a Warforged cleric named Relic, and we were fighting these people in this town that had been brainwashed somehow, or they were being mind controlled because of this like frequency that was coming from underneath the town, and we were completely surrounded by a horde of them, and their leader was basically there to either arrest us. And Nick, thought, oh well, wait, if there's a frequency that's controlling them, let me cast a silence on the leader, and that'll free him from the control. And they had done all sorts of heinous things we had discovered, like sacrificed a bunch of villagers outside of the town. And so I go to cast silence, and my DM goes, oh, crap, just give me a second. And he tries to figure some stuff out. And he goes, okay. So as you cast silence, you see his eyes kind of clear. And then he goes from a look of like what had been just like not anything at all, just complete sadness and sorrow and disbelief, because I didn't think about this. It suddenly hit him, like all of the terrible things that he had done while he was controlled. Oh, and the silence wasn't big enough, and then the silence ended, and then the rest of the people turned and in front of us killed him. And then we had to run. So I basically, instead of saving this guy, let him in his final moments have this horrible moment, and it led to a lot of character development for my character Relic, because he had thought he was doing the right thing, and basically, as far as that campaign had been, it was the worst thing he felt he had ever done. So it was a rough after because then we cut the episode off and we stopped recording, and that was definitely a tough one. I still feel bad for that guy.
Oh God.
See, mine
Oh God.
is similar to that. I did a Trunking Center campaign. We actually extended it out that it was like Dragon Heights and the Trunking Center and then Homebrew all the way up to 20. When they were like level 2, they met this guard captain NPC who was this just angry, bitter, rude, really hateful man. They became friends with his sister, got to know him really well, and they learned like, oh no, he has terrible survivor's guilt because he was the lone survivor of like 2 different horrific massacres and blamed himself for both of them.
Hmm.
And I had kind of taken elements of the Eldar from Warhammer, where he wears a soul stone that has like the souls of like all of his dead brethren like kept on his heart at all times. And he like remembers them, but can't communicate with them. And my wife's character was like so devastated by him that I actually started developing homebrew because she's like, "Is there a speak of dead but with like ghosts or spirits?" And I was like, "Oh, let's figure it out." And I like made a spell so she could talk to him. And his old commander as a ghost like reached out to be like, "It's not your fault. It's okay." He was just like devastated by it, but also like felt great relief. But spent centuries blaming himself because he was an elf. So he had spent centuries blaming himself for this terrible atrocities. And I remember there was like one particular moment right around that where they went to his sister's house and they like, oh, this is Magnus's room, and they like go open his room, and he felt so much horrible guilt and punished himself so badly. All he had was a single lone cot on the floor. He didn't have any furniture, no luxuries of any sort. Didn't even allow himself a blanket because he's like, I don't deserve anything in life. Because I let these like hundreds of my compatriots die, and look, in the character's time, it took about 700 years for him to get any closure on it.
Mm.
Oof. Well, I've got a few stories, but should probably keep it relatively close to the belt when it comes to what's available. We have a character that just passed in a recent campaign that had a pretty bad one, and we had a favorite NPC captain, and the mechanic die in another one, and in the past. But the one I'm going to focus on is Caleb Wesley. That's somebody that was in our Silver Shield campaign, which was like 2 years ago. So this takes place in my universe. This is an individual who had been working for the Empire as someone who hunted down magical threats and took them out with impunity. Was very good at his job, but eventually turned it around and decided that what he was doing was something that he was not willing to continue doing, and ended up taking out his commanding officer. So they sent him to jail. He went to jail for, I think, 10 years before breaking free with another group of individuals and running on the lam and trying to find ways to stay out of harm's way and get his revenge on these people that had done horrible things to him, killed his niece and his brother, and did all kinds of crazy stuff. And he had these ghosts of his past kind of flitting about, following him around, talking to him. One of his niece, one of this very dangerous individual that had created a massacre to begin with and was kind of like the Joker. He's always there over the shoulder, always laughing at him, always trying to force him to do bad things. And another individual who it seemed like was related to him in some way, but he didn't know what it was. And over the course of the entire year that we played, he started to have revelations about these characters, about who were following him around, who these ghosts were, and about himself. And he started remembering things that had occurred at various times, like when he was working for the DAD, and he had to go and take his own brother in because his brother was showing some signs of using magic, and his brother's lover, who happened to be this other ghost that was there with him. There had been an altercation, there had been a couple of gunshots made, and he had killed his own niece and his brother's lover. And so then after killing them, he had been struck with so much grief that he started having some mental breaks, some difficulties staying within himself. As the character was played, every once in a while he'd look into the mirror in his room that he'd be staying in, and he'd see this maddening face, this horrible individual, this terrifying being that kept pushing him to kill. It kept pushing him to be a worse and worse person, to delve into the deepest and darkest parts of himself. And it wasn't until later in the campaign that he realized that that was nothing more than the manifestations of his guilt, telling him he was a bad person. He deserved what he did, he deserved what he got, and he shouldn't. Oh no, we've lost one.
Oh no!
Yeah, he said he's going to try to log back in. There he
There
is.
we
Yep,
go.
there he is.
And he shouldn't be there. He should be gone. He should be dead. He doesn't deserve to be alive because of the things that he's done. So his character had to come to terms with that, and eventually wandered out in the middle of the desert all alone with a loaded revolver, and like sat down at an oasis and contemplated life, what his next choices were going to be, and what he was going to do, until he saw this other portion of himself trying to take over, trying to control him, trying to be rageful, and then he forgave himself. And then the beings that were there faded away, the ghosts were gone. It was just him with himself, recognizing and grieving what had happened. And then this was right before the final showdown with the BBG of the year that we've been playing, the entire situation with the organ coffee. So they travel into this massive compound, outnumbered, outgunned, defense forces on the way shortly if certain steps weren't taken to stop them from occurring. And after redeeming himself, he goes into this facility where he runs into a bunch of old compatriots, individuals that he used to know, and then he says goodbye to his allies, and then he blows himself up and destroys the building and gets rid of their ability to call these alarms, and the party has to move on without him for the rest of the fights. It was a pretty seriously heavy season when it came to that particular character, and very sad ultimately.
I would say that. Yeah, I would say that's a little bit heavy on the sadness there, Ty.
I'm sorry. I mean, he did come back temporarily as a ghost later and help fight bad guys, but you know.
Yeah, because happy people do that.
Yeah,
happy people come back as ghosts, and
that's why
I'm having a great time. Let's get some cocoa. Yeah, no.
So happy to be a ghost.
I know.
Casper, Atomic.
It's so much better over on this side. I don't know why everyone doesn't come over. No.
Yeah, everybody should just die.
I'll round up the end here, and I'll do this one. This was an NPC that I played, and I'm going to use this one as an example because I was genuinely surprised about, I guess, the response of sadness from the party that I'm DMing. So this is my first ever DMing experience with my offline game. It's a D&D 5e game, and the group was going to be traveling from one city to another. It would be, I think, a little over a week in game time in terms of traveling by horseback and by carriage. So they're only slightly better than walking. But the group was a four-person party, and they were escorting two NPCs, like a hired-born noble and like their hired bodyguard. And the noble was basically a very unbecoming, very rude, very holier than thou, very stuffed shirt. Couldn't really be bothered. If she shared a word with you, it's too much. And her bodyguard, his name is Zorash, was this extremely personable. He wasn't a bright man, but he was a dragonborn rather. But he had this story of he came from a completely fallen city, somehow stole his way over across the seas, pulled himself up by his bootstraps, and worked his way up into this comfortable life. And I would say he was a quirky but friendly character, and I was surprised about how taken the party was with him, even in the short time. It was in game time about a week, but for the sake of the session, there was 3 or 4 sessions worth of role playing back and forth with different party members talking to him and things like that. And it only came to a point when they got to where they were going. An event occurred that kind of put the entire town in peril from an attack and they had to kind of work their way out of a trap and then fight their way through the city to get out. Ultimately, well, they were staying in the other part of the city, or the town rather, from the people they were supposed to be escorting, and in order to get there, they had to work their way through something, and they took so long to get through it that the NPC died while trying to protect the noble. And I thought they were going to look at it as, some of them were, I would say, not the most sentimental characters. There's only one that kind of showed general emotion. They all seem to kind of be very much very jagged people. But I was generally surprised about how long they took on the scene with his passing in terms of trying to figure out what they should do. Like, they're running out of time. There's an attack coming in, but they still tried to figure out a way of honoring them and taking a way to remember them and like making sure they left the body as close as possible to what they were, but taking like their prized sword so that they can try to pass it off to somebody. And I was just generally surprised coming from the other side of the screen for once and seeing kind of what an NPC could do to a group, even when I thought it wasn't all that much. But it was a very interesting scene, and we actually, I had a fifth person join like a week or two later, and we brought them in as an old military buddy of this, the NPC that died, and it kind of had that long kind of, like drinking memory moment of just reminiscing, and it helped them work through kind of the emotions in like a half hour role play session. But it was just a really cool dynamic to actually see it unfold where I'm not actually pulling the strings and I just literally watched people, process and role play through something. It was really cool.
You can never tell exactly how attached players are going to get to various NPCs.
Yeah,
no, not at all.
And it's funny, the ones that people do get attached to, too. Like, it's never the one that you think it's going to be, or the one that you intend for it to be.
No, never.
Which actually leads us to our next question. It's a nice segue, actually. Lord Richter has used the Ask My Question Next, so we are bumping his question up to the next one in the queue. And Lord Richter would like to know, who is your favorite NPC villain that became a major campaign villain? That low-level bad guy that somehow kept coming back and tormenting you.
I'll give mine first, because it's something that maybe some of my players don't even know. So one of the BBEGs, biggest, they've been a thorn in everybody's side for over 3 years now, is the Magistrate Emeritus Carver. He is a powerful time and space mage, and he works alongside, sort of, the Elven Tael, which are a faction of individuals who are trying to recreate a monarchy and tear down the Empire and blah, blah, blah. So that character originally was a lackey for King Kaelin Aranea, the leader of the Tael in the very first campaign we ever kind of ran. It was called The Messengers. It was just about a bunch of individuals trying to deliver a package to the Empire. There were a bunch of, mail persons or whatever, postal service deliveries, and it went off the rails. And it's actually, for those of you that played 119, that group that shows up with that box, that was the original messenger group that came through that building and then left it before it got destroyed by monsters. Anyway, so this individual was just there on the surface of the world that they were making this delivery to, and was just kind of supposed to be a throwaway enemy that's in the way before you go and have this conversation or fight with the king. But everybody liked the personality of the character so much, and it made sense for him to have some foreknowledge of events, being a time mage, that eventually kept coming back and became more and more of a threat, until the point now where he is someone who is behind the scenes constantly pulling the strings of basically everything. He's an incredibly powerful individual who can predict the future, can see multiple threads and events, is always one step ahead of everybody because of this fact. And I enjoy getting to play him because it's kind of like he's the GM pulling the strings for each one of the players, and then certain events can take place, and then they'll see his fingerprint on them, and they'll be like, "No, not him again!" And my players will be up in arms, even when their characters have no idea who this character is, which has been a lot of fun to play off of. And I can't wait until the inevitable showdown someday in the future. Who knows when that will be? Because he doesn't get directly involved, because he knows he'd get his butt kicked. I mean, there's that. You know, if you can see the future and you see yourself losing, why not just avoid engaging, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think, any villain that can see the future is definitely a tough one to deal with. I think the most absurd example of this that I've had was also from Know Your Role, actually, and it was in the very first episode we recorded. And our DM introduced us to a Magogol, which, for anyone who's not familiar with them, they're essentially frog people. And his name was Billups, and he described him as wearing like yellow overalls, and he had a little hat, and he just seemed like this sweet, sweet frog boy. And just kind of for, player habit, he had asked us to help him find something, and I did an insight check, and I rolled a nat 20. And Joe, the DM, went, "Oh, shit." Yeah, you can tell this guy is absolutely lying to you. Like, he is lying through his frog teeth, which got us like a little bit on guard, and we're like, "What? This sweet little frog boy is lying to us? Like, why would he do this?" And then cut to several episodes later, he did this little epilogue scene that we weren't there for. It was kind of like sort of happening, and he was sort of narrating it just for the drama, the situational irony of it. And it was this like villain with his black hood up, and he had this evil voice. And when he eventually pulled the hood back, it was Billups, the frog, and he ended up being the BBEG of the entire campaign. And the most important fact I forgot to mention, he sounded exactly like Kermit the Frog. So anyway, yeah.
That reminds me of the Jar Jar Binks is a
the Sith
Lord.
Oh,
Yeah, the Sith.
Yeah, I love that picture so much.
Yeah. So that's mine.
Yeah.
See,
Go
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I have two kind of quick ones. So one in the same campaign I had, so it was something where it was a similar story where I was gonna implant someone who was supposed to be a longer term villain, but they did the same thing. So I was a DM, and one of my players happened to use a lovely spell, which has been the bane of my existence, which is Detect Thoughts. I hate the spell. I finally got to a point where I could finally flip it on its head, but there's been so many random tricks that they got out because of a bad roll on Detect Thoughts. But anyway, so they came across this caravan attack where the only living survivor was like this 6-year-old boy who was devastated, shell-shocked, like barely talked, and it was like, and every single character went into like mama bird mode, and just like we're caring for this child and like trying to do everything they could to get them back to their family and things like that. And for some odd reason, which I have no idea why, one character randomly decided to read the kid's mind, and he failed to save, and he figures out the kid is a cultist in disguise self. He's like a halfling that's in disguise. He's wearing he has a head of disguise on. I said that it was his last thing his father gave him before he died in the slaughter, so no one dared touch the hat. And the guy, I whispered to the guy when he figures out, and I think he just goes up and starts like beating the kid. So everyone from the outside looking in just sees this grown man beating on this like 6-year-old. They're like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, he takes off the hat, and eventually they kill the cultist. But and then my other favorite one as a player. So it was a homebrew campaign I was playing in where, like, try not to get too technical. There was like a new king that went in over the whole the whole kingdom. There was an attempted coup or a revolt, and there was a duke in one of the lands we were in that was associated with the uprising or with this rebellion, and we were hired to go check in on them because there were some weird things happening. Like something was going on with them. So they turned out to be this like weird character that like kind of had like a haunted house that had all sorts of like traps and things, traps in it. But we finally get to the point where we corner him in his basement, and we're like, all right, give it up, just end this. And he just seemed like a regular dude. But the problem was we didn't know this, but he was finishing a summoning circle to unleash an ancient black dragon. And we're like a party of 5 level 4s or something like that, maybe level 5s. And we just all have this moment where, like, he basically says, like, a rift opens up in the world, and you see coming through this fabled dragon of death that's supposed to be, like, you know, like one of the most ancient boogeyman tales of the entire world. And we all have this moment of just, like, shit, and we just all book it, and it's all lies for themselves. So, like, our druid turned into a mole and started digging underground, be like, he can't get me. Like, I was a rogue, so I was using all my actions to just sprint. Like, we just went, screw you guys, we're gone. And, like, it was every man for himself. But it was just, like, this random moment of, like, this really, like, bumbling lord unleashes this, like, apocalyptic ancient black dragon onto the world out of nowhere. It's one of the biggest, like unveiling moments I've ever had as a player. And it wasn't even like the end of that session. It was like we're in the middle of the session. He's like, okay, we're gonna roll initiative. Like, no, we're not. We're not rolling initiative. Damn you, we're not rolling initiative. It was just like the funniest moment. He's like, you only have like 2 turns to get out of the house. What do you want to do? It was such a fun little moment.
I love giving my players those moments where they're like, oh shit, we gotta run now, don't we?
Yeah, it's like there's nothing else you're gonna do. It's like, I think one person stayed and tried to, like, well, I'll try to distract it maybe and let everyone else live. No other character cared.
There is always those players who are like, no, we can take it.
Yeah, someone like jumped on his head and was like riding it like a saddle. Like it was I was like, you have more bravery than I do.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love when the players are like, no, I can face the ancient dragon even though I'm level 4. I got this.
Yeah. Sometimes you've. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, what I was gonna say is, like, I know that my best, like, ultimate villain like that's like just pestered the party forever. It was, when they were like level 3 or 4, they like ran into some cultists, and they were like a noble family that was kind of sad, but they're like, oh well, let's see what their thing is, and they showed up at their house and like looking around and like, this is kind of weird. We need to like steal something from the house, but they found like a bunch of weird things, like a huge underground crypt, and they're like, this is not what we expected, and found out the nobles were like part of this horrible cult of the blood god, and they were like, oh, and then they start uncovering the cult, and then they like transition into this from King's Thunder, and they're dealing with giants. They keep running into cultists and like evil wizards, and one of the characters who joined like midway through the campaign, he's like, oh, I have this childhood rival who then he found out was like a champion, and it just kept escalating that this one particular archdevil was like the architect of all of their misery the entire campaign, just giant puppet master style. Like, I tried to tie almost every single villain that they dealt with back to him, and when it was finally like level 20, they're like, alright, enough of this, and they like made a deal with various dragons and like rode dragons into the 8th of the 9 hells and like fought him and destroyed him in his palace of bones because he had just ruined their lives for like years. It was like every single little thing, like, oh, and you find that this guy has like these copper things, and they're like, oh god, and it was like, well, this guy has this dagger with a familiar symbol, and they're like, oh, and it was every single villain to the point where like if there were medals associated with that archdevil or symbols or this or that, it would just be like, it wouldn't even go and touch it because like, I don't want more this archdevil ruining my life. But that was a good one.
Yeah, sometimes you've got to really drive the point home to players that this fight is beyond you. And I had to do it once where 3 out of 4 of the players they could see this guy. He's like a massive half dragon. I think I described him as like 11 feet tall and black plate mail with a great sword wreathed in flames. And 3 of the 4 party members were like, yeah, we're out of here. And one was like, I think we can take him. And so just to like get him I thought I had described him in a way that it would have scared him. I was like, okay, you see 6 of the town guards run at him, and I just BS rolled some dice behind my screen, and I was like, yeah, so he does, 1 second, let me add up the damage, and I was just making dice noises behind the screen, and I said, okay, well, he kills all 6 of them with a single swipe of his sword, and he was like, oh, okay, yep, all right, guys, let's go. It's like, I couldn't just narratively make him believe it, I had to mechanically make him understand, hey, this guy's going to do a lot of damage if you try and fight him, and that seemed to do the trick.
I've seen that situation so many times. When you're playing in a systems game like 5e, and you say, well, you're level 4, but your opponent's level 18, you can immediately kind of get this, yeah, we probably can't kill that. But in my system, it's not exactly true. I mean, the damage levels and health and things like that only change a marginal amount from early game to late game. So I've had somebody who was like this very powerful, probably multiple encounter type situation, having to run away and gather your things, BBEG type, show up on one of our shows recently. And the crew was like, nah, we're going to fight them as best we can. And I'm like, are you sure? You see that they've got a set of ships surrounding you. They've got a bunch of other members starting to pour onto your ship. Nah, we're going to fight them. So they proceeded to start trying to do that. And then eventually one of our players dipped into chaos and eradicated themselves when given they got an option. I was like, well, with the roll you had, you critically succeeded. You've got a huge amount of energy you're pumping out. You've got a whole bunch of different things you can do. And the spell gives you, a very powerful effect. Your choice is going to be, you can either injure this individual and force them to run away, lick their wounds, and possibly come back at some point soon to deal with all of you again, or your character ceases to exist and you eradicate the ship, and that target is gone, so their forces start turning to flee. And the player's like, it's been a good run. And everybody was like, no! So he self-sacrificed, eradicated himself, destroyed an enemy ship, and that threat was technically dealt with, although that tied into some other stories. It was actually an important character from the other campaign in the games that I was playing 2 of at the same time, so that turned into another thing.
Well then. I don't know that I've had an instance of a BBEG, or not even a BGEG, but like a villain that's come back like that. For us, it was more just a like general NPC that became mostly a group favorite, not my character's favorite, but everybody else's favorite. So they ended up becoming like a major part of the campaign, like we would encounter them all the time in the woods or in town, or eventually he was a goblin who had like been exiled from his tribe, and so like my group was like got him a job in town, like cleaning up trash, and got him a house, and I was like, what is going on? But yeah, it was a streamed game, so chat was all in on it too. They were like, oh yeah, his name was Squee for Prez, all of that stuff. So
the cute goblin or kobold never fails
to
suddenly get the heartstrings of the players, and it's like, they're evil, though. The GM's obviously showing how evil they are, and everybody's like, no, it's adorable.
It's so cute.
Yep.
I actually had a follow-up general question that got brought up a couple of times through here. Luna, if I may, I don't know if there's any other questions.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so I'm still a newer-ish GM. I've been doing it a little over a year now, which I don't know where in the GM scale that makes me. But still, I've run into a few situations where I think it's both my players just being just generally brazen and playing characters that generally aren't, they're kind of jaded, they don't really get fearful. Sometimes you can rely on people role-playing properly to be fearful at the times when they should be fearful. But, like, what do you do in the moments? Like, I've had 2 moments thus far where I basically try to make them wet themselves in a way to, just for the sake of setting or narrative or storytelling, and it is kind of like, actually the 3 times, and they're both like, yeah, screw you guys, we don't care, haha. Like they're like, like picking their nose at the problem. Like, so what are your recommendations for like different styles or ways of actually like trying to narratively come up with like ways to convey that they should be fearful without like basically saying, and he decapitates one of the players, like I know like that one I was gonna steal from Nick, where like you actually just throw in some NPCs to basically die off, I'm gonna steal that one. But I didn't know any other ways. Like there was times where like I trapped all of them in a spot where they're slowly dying, and they're like, we don't care, we'll get out, like all those kinds of things.
I've got one thing that often ends up working, and it requires bending the rules just a little bit, and that is take away what makes them comfortable. In the case of a lot of other player games, like in our streams, we have a lot of audience participation, so they'll throw us aces so we can reroll and things like that. So if in a moment you say, well, you can no longer have these aces, don't work anymore, that will scare everybody. If a mechanic is there, if you're using a bunch of clerics and you say you call out to your god, but nothing answers, and you're unable to use your spell suddenly, just in that one moment against this target, it becomes a narrative focus where it's like you're handicapped if you fight them, and they're very powerful, and that can sometimes motivate you to think, well, maybe there's something else, and you can even remind them. It looks like this individual might be well beyond you, and maybe you should try to find a different way to defeat them than going head on.
Definitely, like taking resources is really useful. I had someone who was a snarky warlock that, whatever, I'll just blast my way through every single thing I ever encountered, and then I had him fight a helmed horror that was completely immune to Eldritch Blasts. He's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, complete immunity. You could be. I mean, if you ever uttered out, choose 4 of your spell slots you'd like to lose right now.
I think your spellcaster would absolutely freak out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You begin losing strength 1 point a round.
In my experience, do you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, we hear you. Yeah, great. I think I accidentally muted myself before, so I was trying to chime in, and but yeah, good. Situations like that is so much a question of expectations on the particular campaign. I mean, as a player, I think it's easier to understand that if you have been like both a player and a GM. And as a player, some campaigns I've been in, I've played some Pathfinder First Edition campaigns, and they felt like they were set up like video game campaigns. Like these situations we end up in, this combat situation is scaled for your level. So if I had in that moment, in the middle of the campaign, run into a situation where, I am supposed to run from this because I am supposed to understand that this is overpowered, I would have missed it. Because the rest of the campaign was basically, like a video game. I am supposed to take every fight. Every fight is supposed to be scaled in such a way that it's a good challenge for us and so forth. So but on the other hand, if you're playing more like an urban fantasy campaign, then people are prompted to think that scary situations will appear, and they are more open to being scared. I come to think, if I can make a little tangent on a situation where that really scared the shit out of the players at one moment. It was from I was a player. It was that the vampire campaign I mentioned before, where I played as Magnolia. The thing with Magnolia is she was very confident. She was super confident. She was always in control. She was the de facto group leader, coterie leader. and people sort of assumed that she would always be confident, she would always be snarky, she would always control the situation. So whenever she didn't, I guess I sort of played with the storyteller on this. I sort of helped the storyteller because she had she had some trauma. I don't remember. I won't go into the details, but certain situations when she felt helpless, she could be absolutely scared shitless. And you get and we were investigating a haunted house. You got to remember, this is vampire. We are playing vampires. We are monsters. So it can be hard to scare people in a vampire game because we are Halloween monsters. But then ghosts started showing up, and it was dark, and it was sort of scary. There was nothing really dangerous, but it was a scary ambience. And Magnolia totally freaks out and starts shivering, starts crying, starts curling up in the arms of her boyfriend. And the rest of the players, I was sort of in on it. I was really, I know what Jamie's going for, so I'm playing this role. And the rest of the players were shitting their pants. Because this pillar of the coterie, of the group, that always had the answers, always was strong, always was confident, were totally breaking down. And they were so scared. This ghost that could hardly hurt us. I mean, they could give us some scratches, but we were vampires. We could survive gunshot wounds. But people were so scared because this person that we are supposed to be leaning on as the pillar of the group is suddenly tiny and scared and crying. Oh my god, what are we going to do? We are gonna die. That was a great moment.
I have to say that I think that Sanctum over there in chat discusses something that makes a big point too. A very important thing is if you want your players to take you seriously in certain ways, you have to set a precedent, and you have to be willing to play the game that you want to play with them. If you want to play one where everybody plays these fantasy heroes and they always kind of come through in the end and all that, that's the type of game you're playing. If, however, you are not... If you're not willing to pull punches and you literally do allow one of them to get harmed or die or have a serious event happen, then they're more likely to be a little bit more cautious about it. Like one of the games that I was just recently playing, we had this thing that had been built up the entire season where there was a chemical concoction that caused dwarves and other living beings basically to melt from the inside out. It was a very powerful toxin that was used as a weapon by this group on an entire city. And the crew was trying to take care of that city, trying to neutralize this toxin, trying to save a bunch of lives. And they all knew that if they breathed this stuff in, it was going to kill them. It had a very, very high roll target to avoid or difficulty to overcome. And one of the crew members saw that his son was about to drink this stuff in, who was also a peacekeeper, a soldier in the area that was trying to fight these forces. So they launched themselves from they used a vehicle to launch themselves like a spear across the street and over to where their son was to provide them with their own safe tech, with their own, gear used to protect yourself from gases. He did that, and then a series of events happened, and then his character, unfortunately, breathed in this chemical. And it's like, well, we all know what happens next. And over the course of just another episode, he barely was able to make it off of some rolls to stay functional for another scene. And then he melted, and then he died in the arms of one of his allies.
Oof.
And that's like, we knew it was going to happen. It is there. There are not pulled punches there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she says it right there in the chat, Sanctum. And he died in my arms.
I just died in your arms tonight.
So if you show your players that if you say something is dangerous and it proves to be dangerous, next time they'll probably listen.
Yeah. Go on, Penguin.
Yeah, it's all about expectations, and I also think that you can solve a lot on that in like session 0 talks. I think you should be upfront of what kind of campaign is this. Is this a high heroic fantasy? Is this anime style balls to the wall action, or is this something more gritty with more consequences, with more backlash? I think you can solve a lot of those problems by simply stating before the campaign, this is the kind of campaign I will be playing, this is the tone, these are the risk factors, and be upfront. I think very often you can solve the problem even at that stage. If you have been upfront at if you make bad decision you will die, and the players know that, yeah, a lot of your work is done for you, I think.
Yeah, I think I was at the point where I was, like, I always said at the start of the game that I will not stop you from killing yourself, but I won't ever let you unknowingly kill yourself. So, like, if they ever get to a point where they're pushing something, and I'll be like, just so you know, you are aware that they outnumber you like 10 to 1, even with your level, you're probably going to be slaughtered. So you can keep doing what you're doing, but I always try to at least allow them to know that you're about to kill yourself. It's just like, and I've done that a couple times where I'm just like, just remember, if you keep going here, your character believes that they could just smite you, but they just keep pushing it, and eventually it doesn't go the way of death, but I sit there going like, and it could, like I said, I just don't know if it's the players role-playing people that don't get scared, or like just try to be brazen in the face of fear, or what. It's just like, there's been numerous times where I've tried to simulate fear, and it could just be the group, and you know what I mean? But, like, there's been times where they almost have died in combat. I don't pull punches in combat, but when it comes to narrative, like, you look at a cliff, like, I'm gonna go jump into the lake. Like, well, you know the cliff is 1,000 feet up. Like, I'll say, you can definitely do it, but I will inform you that you will die if you do it. Like, if there's a high likelihood that something dangerous will happen if you try to do this. And if they elect to do it, it plays out how it plays out. But that's, like, my whole thing is, like, I won't let them do it without information.
I do think it
That's
also comes
probably
from system mechanics, knowledge,
Yep.
and safety from that. Some game systems are not really designed to be super brutal. Or
Yeah,
if you play
agreed.
D&D 5e, you can take on probably way more.
Yeah, it's
than
not
you're
the
challenged.
it's not a brutal setting. Like in like any of the Warhammer settings, you go into it going like, I'm probably gonna lose a character today. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's just how it
kill
works.
You, Hackmaster will kill
Yeah,
you.
it's
Vampire can be brutal too.
fine. Yeah, like you could piss off the wrong person and it's like one wrong turn dead. So it's like
Dead.
yeah, 5e is a little bit safer for it, but yeah, I've ran into a few narrative spots where I'm just like I'm not getting the reaction I wanted out of my players. So I've been trying to brainstorm ways of just figuring it out.
I think it might be, as I said, I don't know for sure, but it could be player expectations. Like if the players expect still the campaign to be very heroic, the characters to be very heroic, and being scared is not something heroic characters are supposed to do. It could be that, or as you say, it could be the players. That certain players,
Yeah,
all
could be.
players are different. Like I mean, there are certain campaigns I don't fit into, and there are certain campaigns that I fit very well into that other people don't fit into. It could be like they just don't think it's fun to play scared. I can think it's very fun to play scared in the right campaign, but some people might feel that it's no fun. I don't know. I don't know your players. I haven't played it, but
Exactly.
exactly. Did you hear me there?
Yep.
Yeah, we heard you.
Yeah, we heard you. There was some looked like some interference, but yeah, great.
Well, we are going to pause for a break here and give everybody a chance to step away, refill drinks, hashtag free the pee, all of that good stuff. And we will be back in just a few minutes. So we'll see you right after the break, and we will get to hopefully all of the questions we haven't gotten to yet.
Hopefully.
All right, we are back from our break. I hope you had a good few minutes away and got a chance. I saw chat was pretty active, so that was nice to see you all interacting and talking about various things in regards to DMing and consequences of player actions and that sort of thing. So that was great. And we'll have a question about that in just a few minutes. But I want to dive back in with the next question that we were waiting on, which came from Sanctum Cosplays. And Anna would like to know, what is something that someone has done at the table that has caused a derailment in a good way?
In a
Okay,
good
I
way,
have-
depending on who
Yeah.
is saying it's a good way. Because I've got some good derailments from my side.
I have a perfect one.
All
that
right.
happened actually sort of recently. We're actually just finishing up the campaign now, but we were finishing Rime of the Frost Maiden, and I had some stuff in mind, and during it, one of the players made a deal with Levistus, which wasn't really intended, but it was like through some bad circumstances, and that was almost a derailment, but we kind of got back on track, and at like the ultimate final moment, Levistus shows up, and he's like, "All right, I'm taking your soul. Come on, you're coming to the fifth hell with me." And all the players jumped in the portal, and they're like, "Oh no, we're gonna." And my wife's character's like, "I have a brilliant idea," and they had a scroll of summoning the Thrask,
Oh
and she's
god.
like, "Boom!" and she tosses it, and then she's like, "All right, I'll do plane shift," and I was like, well, two problems. First off, plane shift doesn't work if you're in a hell and the lord of that hell doesn't want you to leave. And secondly, the Trask lands on top of Levistus' icy prison and breaks him out of it. And then we ended the session, and I had to rewrite the whole next part of the campaign because I didn't plan on them like all going to that hell or breaking Levistus out or having the Trask within a mile of them. And it like, all right, I got to figure out what I'm doing now.
Different direction for the campaign now.
But it was hilarious, and it made for a really fun, like, maybe 10 sessions after that, and we like wrapped up the campaign.
Yeah, I have many such stories about the good kind of derailment. One very endearing derailment was it was a long time ago. We were playing Exalted. The White Wolf game, Exalted. You play as like demigods in sort of anime-inspired fantasy, and they were very newly baked Exalted. They started playing as mortals and became Exalted. They had just started to unlock their powers, a very low-level campaign. And one character was he had taken a shine to a female barkeep. There was this woman was running a bar, and his character was like he was sweet on her. So he was like, I know. In order to impress this girl, I think that wasn't the stated reason, but the unofficial reason was I want to impress this girl, and we need to make some extra money. So we're going to set up a play, like a theater play. Yes, and we were playing in a rather big room, so we had a lot of space to move around. So then he gets up, and I set the scene. This is your play. This is the, you're at the inn that she has, and she has agreed that you can have your play there. And then he gets up, and he sort of drags the other players up, and they start in-game, like really playing out this play they are setting up, while moving around. I'm not just saying describing the gestures and body language of the character my character is playing. They were moving around and really setting up an improvised play in that room during a session, and all this to impress the female barkeep.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Go well.
That's hilarious. Sadly, that campaign for off reasons, that campaign was cancelled a bit after that. So I don't. We will never know if he managed to win the heart of the female barkeep. But yeah, that's a pity. It was such a moment where the players got so into these demigods we are playing are going to have a little play at this rundown inn in the back streets of this town. So we get up and start playing it out.
That's great.
Yeah, that was really great.
Improv's one of my favorite things, and that's part of what makes me do what I'm doing here. We're live in front of people and performing and playing a game at the same time and trying to be entertaining. It scratches that acting itch.
Yeah.
I had. Go on.
Oh, I've got a derailment situation. This was in a Dragon Heist campaign I ran, and without getting into the nitty gritty, basically there was the villain of the campaign were these two nobles, and I'd been feeling a little bit like I hadn't given the campaign enough momentum, and it was kind of dragging, and so I thought I'm gonna have them get captured by the villains and have them monologue to them to really like get across to the players, hey, this is what you're up against. And the players fell right into the trap. I didn't like railroad them. They went to break in, they got caught, and my villain was monologuing on the third floor. Had trapped them, and was basically saying what their plan was and how they were. I'd been planning an NPC to come and rescue the group, so they could get away. They got near some danger, but things would work out. So the NPC shows up, kicks down the door, and is like, hey, let's get out of here. And the rest of the party is like, all right, let's go. But the one player decided, no, I want to tackle the BBEG through the window on this third floor manor. And there was a big gala going on downstairs. Long story short, he rolled a nat 20. I had to let it happen. He was an Asimar, so he burst through the window, like tackling the villain. Big golden wings burst out, and they had this anime-style fight in the air.
Oh man!
The guy ended up barely getting away with his life. He had to run. Like he totally couldn't take him. But the point of all this is it completely derailed the campaign, because now like the villain had to do all this public, cover to kind of turn the town against the party. And it completely reinvigorated that campaign, and is one of the greatest, like for me, one of my greatest moments as a DM, because I was completely not expecting it. I was so sure there's no way that they're going to take the parachute when I give it to them, which is this NPC, and he was like, nope, I'm going to sacrifice my character and try to take this guy out. So it was wild.
That's brilliant.
I had one as a player, which same thing. It's a tale of a nat 20, and this is funny because we were talking about this during the break when the cameras or the mics were off. So this is a character that I love to play. It is my favorite character I ever played, I think, or at least top 3. He was a dwarf pirate barbarian named Vizgar, and our rogue decided to do what rogues did, and he went off by himself to go look into a side of town. Tale of a nat 1, he slipped, fell, knocked himself unconscious, and he got captured by who we suspect to be generally evil people. Turns out, surprise, they were evil people. And the group went out the next day, like, he hasn't come back since last night, not really like him. So we basically went through that neighborhood which we knew he was scouting in, and doing like the whole like, hey buddy, you over there? No, hey buddy, you over there? And just like basically, have you seen this person? And we got up to this building that had guards in front of it, not like just like private guards, like actual city guards. And we walked up like, hey, have you seen our like small little friend? He was a gnome or a halfling or something like that. And the guy said no. And for some odd reason, I wrote an insight check. I don't know why. I got a nat 20 on it, and my character was not a wise person for things you're about to hear in about a couple seconds rather. I rolled well enough where my DM says, he's lying. And it went from there to, hey, I know you're lying, just tell me the truth. And he basically is like, hey, screw off. Flash forward, so I murder both town guards. I put an axe in his chest. What do you do? Anyway, and so I kicked down the... Like you knew.
As one
I
does.
don't like people lying to me. I said, tell me the truth. He lied. The axe is on him. Anyway, so I kicked down the door. I should say there's a party of 5 of us. We're trying to rescue the 6th person. Me and only one other person went in. The other 4 went, what's he doing? Nope, gone. Okay, and they just like
I'm not gonna be.
they just washed their hands of it and said, you know what, he can die, it's fine, and just like left me and one other person try to figure this whatever out. And so we go into the room and we immediately go into a spot full of like cages of extremely high level just creatures, all in cages. But we managed to see our buddy locked up in one of the cages as well, and we're fighting our way through. We're kind of holding our own. We finally break him out of the cage, and then this high level character comes down the steps. I just thought it was another person that just happened to be running the place, and we're like, we try to square up on him, and she just like pistol whips us. It wasn't even funny. We're like, okay, we got to get out of here. So the only way we got out of there alive to tell the tale was there was a cage with a chimera. I put a weapon in it and said I'm going to try to just break open the lock and just run for it with the chimera like being a distraction. He literally told me, you need a nat 20 or you can't break the lock. Well, I was raging, got an advantage, rolled a nat 20, broke out the chimera, grabbed the unconscious, so the guy who we rescued immediately went unconscious because like someone sneezed on him and he like went unconscious again. So I'm running out the door with him over my shoulder. I forget who joined me, but we're just booking it through the town now because we pissed off someone who they were crooked, but they were still somewhat associated with the town. So we're trying to play off that something else is going on and had to do this like long blown out like charade scene in the middle of a town square as we're being chased by town guards. And it was like the DM told me twice that you were not supposed to get into that building for a couple levels later, and you were not supposed to get out of that building. So it was just like two lovely moments of just like watching this all unfurl in front of our faces, and the fact that we didn't have all of our party and still lived was impressive.
You can never underestimate the player's blind, dumb luck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
and it's so much fun being on the other side of the screen too, because I've seen that happen to me as a DM. I'm just like, you got it. Okay,
how did you?
We'll see how this goes.
I don't even understand what just happened.
Yep.
So I have one here that is a little bit of a strange one. So on my channel, we have the ability to redeem using channel points. Create a complication for the players that allows you to kind of narrate a little bit of what comes into the scene that people are dealing with, and this has created a bit of a feud situation at this time between one group of the cast on one show and one group of the cast on the other show. So one show has a complication that causes one of their players to be mentally reprogrammed from the ground up. So then that cast comes back to attack this other show, which is where the derailment comes in. Not from the audience, although that triggers it, but from one of the players. So the setting for you, they're out in front of this tiny village. They're trying to protect from a bunch of Empire forces who are rolling up in airships and ground tanks, basically, and have a whole bunch of soldiers and this very powerful individual who belongs to the Mithril Order. They're wearing like really potent armor. It's like a big commander type. And the situation is, don't screw this up, convince them that you had nothing to do with the terrorists that are in the area, and find a way to get them to just back off and not destroy this village you're standing in front of. So, they happen to start doing this thing. They're starting to talk to the commander. They're starting to, say, okay, this is really, there was insects that came into the village. They killed some of the soldiers that were here before. The fact that there are rumors of Vinsir being here, no big deal. That terrorist organization, it's fine. It's not, it's not going to be an issue. And they start succeeding, and they're, starting to win roll after roll after roll, and it's going well. And then one of the other cast members who will be left nameless.
Should have known.
Comes into the chat.
And says
that one of your characters trips and reveals the fact that one of the other characters is an elf. In my universe, elves are technically illegal. They have to hide their personage because the Dwarven Empire can't stand them. They live forever, so they're always going to be a threat, and they are to be arrested and or killed. One or the other. So the kobold falls down, pulls down Nova's disguise, this other character, and is revealed to be an elf. It's like, oh crap. So the commander, in the process of seeing that, has the other player jump in front of them and crit fail on trying to get their attention, and instead chooses that he happens to be recognized as the individual who stole a whole bunch of very valuable items from nobles at the beginning of the season. So he's also wanted, which is, problematic. So finally, and then one of the other characters who's trying to get the terrorists that they did capture to hand over to the Empire and say this wasn't us, fails on capturing them, and they escape over the wall with just a modicum of damage. So everything goes from it's working to everything's tits up. So here's the complication that occurs. This is when the derailment happens. One of the other individuals had recently received a weapon, a very powerful weapon that was part of what destroyed a city. Recently, and they were going to. He took it for a very powerful entity who was an Eternal of Death, who wanted this for some reason and was going to make this guy use it at a different time in the future in regard for trade of power and knowledge. So he's like, well, I've got this thing. Well, maybe I can convert it. Maybe I can turn it into something different. Maybe I can make this save the day. And he says, what if I imbued this with enough magic that would make them forget the last 5 minutes so we could just start over? Let's just do that. Let's just imbue it with a bit of an amnesia type bomb situation. We'll change its effects. So he goes and he sets it up, and then he makes it way too powerful accidentally, like 4 or 5 times more powerful than it should be. Throws this thing out, it goes off, a wave of amnesiac magic washes across like a 2-mile radius and hits everybody there. 6 months later, everybody starts getting their memories back as they've been wandering about and doing things without really being cognizant. So I had to now create, where was everybody within 6 months? One of the characters had been picked up by their love interest and flown away to a different planet so that they could be together while she was mentally not quite all there. 2 of them had been traveling off and wandering into the wilds as adventurers because that's what their prerogative was when they were together. The other 2 were taking care of a child in the village that they'd been in, and the Empire forces had all just returned home and not really known what was going on until they started waking up and realizing that they'd been duped. So that was a big derail. And it was good for me, because it was fun.
Yeah.
As all good derailments should be.
As all good derailments should be.
All right. Let's see. Our next question that we have is from Babushka, and she would like to know, what is the most pathetic way you've seen a player die or almost die in a game?
I had a player fall down an elevator. And they bounced off the walls multiple times. I'm trying to give them the chance to catch themselves. It's like, just roll well once, please. And it's bang, 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 smash into the bottom. Almost completely destroyed them. They were unconscious. They needed heals from allies. That's it. They were trying to get in an elevator, but didn't realize as they opened it that it was just an empty shaft, and they just walked in.
Oi!
Whee!
Wee!
What's worse is that was in the middle of a combat situation. They were trying to escape. So all the rest of their allies had to find their way down to the bottom floor and help.
Oops. Yeah, I have one. It was in... as I said, I played a bit of first edition Pathfinder. And we had this player character that had been with the group for quite a while. It was the Rise of the Runers campaign, and it had a pretty high character turnover. I was the only character that was with the campaign from the beginning to the end, and we had one character had just died, and that player had made a new character. This new character was a goblin rogue that used a hat of disguise to appear to be a halfling rogue. But anyway, and we were fighting some ogres, and said ogres had big brutal hooks for weapons, and these hooks, which will become relevant in a moment, was like they didn't have a great crit range, so it was hard to crit with them. But if they did crit, they did massive damage. It was like 3 times or 4 times the damage, and ogres have very high strength values. So we have just gotten this new character into the group, and we are going to fight our way into the ogre's stronghold. And we see the guards at the gate, and the rogue, being a rogue, sneaks up at the guards and sneak attacks one of the guards, hits the guard, and does a decent amount of damage from his sneak attack. Then the guard strikes back and crits and kills the rogue with 1 hit. Does like 25% more damage than that rogue had hit points. So the rogue is not like dying, the rogue is dead, the rogue is red mist. And this was the first round of the first fight. That was the first thing that happened in the first session that character was in. The second roll in that happened in that fight, when the ogre struck back and he died, and he had to make another character.
Oof.
Yeah.
That
I
reminds
had-
me
Go
of. Have you ever watched Viva la Dirt League on YouTube?
Oh my
or
god,
wherever
it's
they're at?
so funny.
They have some D&D skits that are in there, and one of them is just this individual who talks about this very flowing, flowery past for their character and all the major events they've taken part in, and all the things they've done, and then something just kills them in 1 hit, and then they come back with another character who's that one's brother, but has all the same flowery background. And all.
Yeah. Let's hide behind the mountain of dead bards.
There you go.
I don't know if you catch that reference, but from the old Gamers movie.
Gamers was amazing. I love that.
Yes.
I had a tale of something akin to a Wild Magic death, where we were playing Warhammer 40k Dark Heresy, I think the first edition.
Oh.
Yeah, which is a very brutal edition. And
Yeah, I heard about it.
I love the games. Love the games to death. I always want to play more of them. But I was playing a Psyker, which is basically the spellcaster in Warhammer 40k. And there is a thing where it's akin to wild magic, where they have you roll poorly enough as you try to materialize your psychic or your Psyker abilities out of the void. You can roll perils, and perils rolls on a table, and the table's, it's wild magic ultimately. So I was playing a Psyker, and we were like in a bar. We were talking to some contact or something. We were like we were in no danger. There was nothing of threat going on. I merely, I think, just wanted to either check the guy's mind or detect like to see if something was around us. Something completely stupid. And I roll, get perils, roll for the perils table, and I turn myself into a lightning rod of just like electrical energy, and the DM rolled enough damage that it murdered my character like that.
Oh,
Oh no.
And so not only did that happen, because of the perils, I had to do lightning damage to X amount of people centered on myself a certain distance away. So I killed myself instantly, almost murdered one of my party members, and it was just this quiet bar, it's just like, yeah, we were having a thing, when it exploded in a corner of the bar out of nowhere for no reason. And it was just like, well, that just happened. It was just like the most stupid roll I ever had, that I managed to roll like two nat ones on and murder myself and almost my entire party.
In that universe, like everybody at the bar
I love
goes,
Warhammer.
Oh, and they go back to their
Yeah,
drinks
like,
and
that's the
whatnot.
thing,
Oh,
it's
this
like, it
happens.
just
Just another
happens.
Thursday, just
Yeah,
explodes at random.
There's no like happy tales in Warhammer 40k
It
ever.
do be like that as
Yeah.
Hammer. But,
Yeah.
I,
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Al.
Well, I was gonna say, I think I did have one person that wild magic and blew themselves up in the starting tavern in the first session. The fireball centered on themselves. But I think the most pathetic, they actually didn't die. They did survive because the cleric had like all the proper spells. But they saw something like tunneling around them. They're like, oh, I have these boots that I can like lift up and stomp down and create this big seismic wave that does a bunch of create like magic lava, it does all this stuff. And he's like, oh, I'll stomp down, and he does. I'm like, okay, you crumble into a cave system and drop 80 feet, and a huge gorilla demon with like 6 arms starts pounding upon you, and he lands underneath the gorilla because they're fighting in midair, and he's squashed by it, and he gets down to 0. He's like failing death saves. The cleric brings him back up, and then he gets squashed again, and he gets brought back up, and then squashed again, over and over the entire fight. And that one was pretty pathetic. That like our fighter who had this brilliant plan was just in this loop-de-loop of death, and he later faced his childhood rival, who is now like this champion of an archdevil, and he faced him one-on-one, even though he had been warned against it many, many times. He dropped on 0, the guy slit his throat and then like started flying away, and I'm like, alright, your character's dead, you failed all your death saves. And the cleric is like, I'll revivify, and his rival counterspelled it.
Oh, I gotta love that.
The party was so furious with me, but it was one of the most hilarious and pathetic deaths I've ever seen.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
He did come back later, but I had my moment, so it was worth it.
It wasn't... I don't even know if I would say that it was a near death, but it was pretty darn funny, in my opinion anyway. In a home game years ago, I was playing with a group of friends, and my character was a rogue who we were slaying over, like, in some ruins somewhere, and so my character had happened to wake up in the middle of the night, and she was like, I can't sleep, I'm gonna go off and explore, and so she wakes up, and she realizes as she wakes up that their cleric is missing, and so she's, like, looking around like, that's weird, where the heck would he have gone? And one of the other party members, I don't know who, I still to this day actually don't know who it was, had basically taken him, and somehow he managed to stay asleep through all of this, and the DM rolled for it. The party member had taken him, hog-tied him, and strung him up in an old fireplace in the ruins that we were in. And so my character's just like, and like goes on her way, like to explore the ruins in the middle of the night by herself, as a good rogue would. And so she comes back, and the cleric is still sound asleep, hog-tied in this fireplace. And I'm pretty sure I had an alignment change, because I went over, rifled through his pockets, took everything out, and because I found it, my character happened to be a kender, and found lots of things, and so as she goes to walk away, she goes, oh, he's in a fireplace, and she sets a fire trap under him. And so when he wakes, so he woke up in the morning and was like, oh, what is going on? And so manages to get himself down, not realizing, like, not even thinking there would be a trap set under him, drops right down into the fire trap. The rest of us all thought it was hilarious. He was not so thrilled, but the rest of us laughed really hard.
You weren't the friendliest of adventuring groups.
Well, we were. We just like to have a lot of fun with this one particular guy.
Okay. Including hog-tying him in and then blowing him up.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, he's a good sport, and he thought it was really, like, in retrospect, he was like, actually, yeah, that was really funny and pretty impressive that he stayed asleep through the whole thing. So yeah, it was good. But it was a good time.
Remember, me. If I ever play with you, I should be very wary.
I haven't
I
done
should
that
have-
in probably 10 years, so it's all right. I'm a little
Yeah.
better now.
I'm maxing out my perception stat just to be sure.
Just in case. That's
no
fair.
offense.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Nick. What were you going to say?
I think the only death that I can think of in this for this question, I won't even say it was pathetic as much as it was a death that was purely the result of just a bit, like a comedy bit between two characters. They were running from the group of villains. There were 3 of them. They were sort of like split the BBG up into like one was big and strong, one was like a powerful magic user, and one was kind of a rogue. And there was a barbarian and a fighter in our party. And they had this they were sort of like Legolas and Gimli in that they always tried to one-up each other in combat. And so we knew we had to escape. And the barbarian was like, all right, I want to get 1 hit on this guy before I leave, even though I probably will miss. And she did. She got like a 24 to hit, did some damage, knew it wasn't going to be enough. I was like, all right, I'm out of here. And it was our friend's, the fighter's turn, and he could have used his action surge to disengage and dash and been far off and away. He was like, okay, I'm not going to let her get the last hit. I'm going to get a hit, and then I'm going to run. And so he did. He got the hit. He went to leave, and the DM decided he had been holding his reaction to do an opportunity attack on the fighter. Because he knew the barbarian was raging and wouldn't take as much damage. So he was like, all right, yeah, he's just gonna get a swing at you. And we were all like, ooh, it'll be fine. The fighter had like 60 health. Well, it turns out the DM rolled a nat 20 on the opportunity attack and then rolled max damage on the dice. And this was just a basic melee attack, but this was a super strong boss. And he ended up doing a wild amount of, and I think he had some sort of ability, kind of like an evil version of Divine Smite. So he ended up doing 120 something damage. And literally,
Oh, wow.
ended the character. We were all laughing and joking, and then we were like, wait, how much? Wait, no, because if that's double his health, like we can't, and it just kind of sunk in. And this was not a DM who reveled in doing this kind of stuff. He's like, look, you guys can look behind the screen. All the dice are here. And so I wouldn't call it pathetic. It ended up being kind of heroic. He sort of flavored it as like he kind of ended up, because of his goof, like giving the rest of us a chance to escape. But it literally was just because the 2 players liked to always kind of, poke fun at each other. Like, no, I'm going to get the last hit. So it was a tough one though.
Yeah.
Ooh.
He died doing what he loved.
Yeah,
One-upping the other character.
One-upping the other character. He got the last laugh in the end.
He really did. He really did. Yeah.
All right, let's see. The next question that we have came in from Turtles and Chill. And Turtles and Chill would like to know if you have any inside jokes that spawned from your campaigns that reoccur in other campaigns.
Oh, yes.
Yes, absolutely. I actually have a magic item that I've included in a few campaigns now, and I even put it in. This isn't like this is a semi-shameless plug, but I did put it in my pirate supplement, where I had the players. They found this cursed skull, and it was like this gold-covered skull with like gems for eyes. And they started talking, and I used like a really obnoxious voice. I was like, "Hey, what's going on, fellas?" And like, oh God. And he explained that he had been a comedian on basically a cruise ship and wasn't very funny, and he offended a warlord by trying to like joke and rib at him. So the warlord is like, he's like, "Oh, I'm not doing this for the money," and so the warlord's like, "Oh, I'll give you money," and poured gold on his head and turned him into this skull. So now he's cursed until he makes enough money that he's going to forever be a talking skull. But he floats around people and like tells jokes to them. So I made it so he can cast like Tasha's hideous laughter or cast like vicious mockery. And then I had like another campaign that I like just introduced the same skull, and then like another campaign, and people started like finding this same skull, and now I have it in like 5 different campaigns, and it's become like a favorite amongst all of my players. They're like, I had someone when we were doing session 0. They're like, "Is he gonna show up in this one?" I was like, "Yes, probably." But yeah, he's got a couple different names, but it's like the logo is the most common one, or Yaka sometimes. But it's like they'll get him and use him as an item to like be like, okay, cast Tasha's hideous laughter on this guy, and like tell him a bad joke. And it's so bad that they're like, oh god.
Oh no.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I just had my one and only one that I can think of, since there's only been one time I've had a cross play in games I've been in, and some of you might know. I know Wolfblood knows. I know Luna knows. I had this lovely player I played on Neuro Nexus Zero called Jesse, who was a lovely crackhead of a player, or meth head as they put it, the crystal method as they always called him. I had this moment where I had to roleplay a guard that I wasn't planning on roleplaying, and the person who rolled the insight check on him, or like a persuasion check on him, he was associated with the same game, and he rolled a nat 20, and he was trying to get some information, so I said, screw it, this becomes the most cordial guard ever, and I just turned him into Jesse in a fantasy setting, where he started talking about the lizard people and the pyramids underneath the world. And how it's all this like big scheme, but like everyone at the stupid wizard academy is all just covering it all up, and like he basically was just drinking the Kool-Aid, and he was just like happy to have someone to spur these conspiracy theories at, and like basically just gave him whatever he like was like looking for and asking for. But that's the only time I've ever had like a crossover between two games that I've been in.
The only one I can think of is we had a character named Parlance de Guile in one of my series who was a noble Baji, and he was known for Merchant House as a noble, and happened to sell de Guile Bucks coffee, which kind of started showing up in almost all of my games, and there was an NPC that I made on the fly named Kyle de Guile, which everybody happened to get like really behind. Who now is a barista that shows up in these moving war vehicles that show up and sell coffee and ram things. So, there's that.
That's incredible.
That's so fun.
Is there a name of the brand?
It's the Guile Bucks.
It's the Guile Bucks. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've made it into a magical item that reduces your overload, basically giving you like a spell slot back when you drink one.
he should serve them in vials, so it can be a vial of Kyle de Guile.
The vial of Kyle de Guile.
Oh my gosh.
I suppose there was another one too from the same player. There was a period of time where we had a cast switch occur on our network because of some individuals that were changing schedules. So he went over, and upon the very first episode of showing up on this other ship, he runs into another kobold. They mistake each other for themselves, thinking that maybe one of you is me from the future. And then they do the same thing with one of the other characters, who is just a large kobold, thinking that that's the future one from the future again. And it turns into this whole, this is me in the past, this is me in the present, this is me in the future, and we're going to have to work out how this all works out. And it carried over when that character came back to the other show.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's confusing, but it was entertaining. You had to be there. You had to be there.
Kobolds, you can do that kind of stuff. There's others where it's more difficult, but kobolds are wacky enough that it usually works.
Yeah, kobolds are crazy, so it's fun.
I have a coffee place called the Green Mermaid in like all my games, and we'll be like, "There's a green mermaid," and then across the street there's another green mermaid. They're like, they're everywhere.
That's awesome.
We would have something like that probably in a local campaign, except for that instead of being a green mermaid, it would be like, oh look, there's Dunkin's Donuts, except for because that's the one that we have around here.
And you have like Duncan standing outside, big shield.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because me and my best friend are both really big Dragon Age fans, so it's always like Duncan from Dragon Age, the Dragon Age Origins game. So it's yeah. That's our big joke.
Duncan R.I.P.
Yeah, I know. Heart
Yeah,
hands for
I know.
Duncan. Oh,
Well, I have one that I have done lots of small such stuff, but one became a classic, and it was one of those, inspired moments when you're improvising a description and just pulling stuff right out of your bottom, and you just say something perfect. The thing was, this was in my own game Arcadia, that is very inspired by the Borderlands video games. It's very, very much inspired by that. And the players, I don't remember why, but they had to communicate to get info. They found a house in a bog, and an old, decrepit sort of haunted-looking house. And they found out that the mold and the fungus that grew on the house had sort of mutated and linked together and became sentient. So the house was sentient via the mold that was growing on it, and they had to communicate with that. They had to get information from that entity, for some reason, I don't remember why. And in order to do that, they drank an hallucinogenic tea. So the witch who lived there gave them this tea they should drink so they couldn't speak to the house. So I describe, you drink the tea, it tastes a little bitter, you don't feel anything right away, you start to feel a little drowsy. I see space flavors. And it was just so right, and that term, I see space flavors, it sort of became a meme, or became an expression for, being high or something being really weird and surreal, because it was just so perfect. It was so perfect in a situation. It's such a wonderful term because you immediately know it's complete nonsense, but hearing it, you immediately understand that. Yeah, I know. Yeah. You're tripping balls, man. So yeah, that was. It wasn't a joke as much as a meme or an expression, but it's a real classic. This was many years ago. Might be a decade ago or so, but that among those people that were around at that time, everybody knows that term, and it's the term gets used sometimes in other situations, like, yeah, you take this, you see space flavors. Okay, I see space flavors.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I love it.
Now I know that color out of space is just about being really high.
All right. Well, we have run out of time for the evening, so we are going to have to wrap it up here. Unfortunately, we have several questions that we did not get to, but I will post those on Twitter this week, and this time I actually promise that I will. My week got away from me last week, and I wasn't able to post last week's questions, so I will definitely make sure that we do that, and I will tag everybody in it. So if you guys all want to chime in with your responses there, you can. The community can join in as well, so they can all answer the remaining 3 questions that we didn't get to tonight. So thank you all so much for joining us. We're going to go back around again.
Thanks for having us.
Yep. We're just going to go back around again and have everybody, again, remind us of who you are and where we can find you on social media. And if you have anything coming up that you want us to know about, we're going to go in the reverse order of when we started. So we're actually going to start with Nick this time.
All right. Yeah, everyone, my name is Nick, and you can see on the nameplate here, you can find me on Twitter at Scry Society. It's also on Twitch at twitch.tv/Scry Society. I will most likely not be streaming, or not most likely, I won't be doing my usual charity stream for November and December, but I will be coming back in January. Other than that, I'll be. I know this. I don't believe this is going to be streamed. Ty, is our game on Saturday being streamed?
Yes, it'll be streamed.
It
on
is being
Saturday.
streamed. Okay.
Yeah.
So our game on Saturday will be streamed, so you can check me out there over on RF Chaos, Roll for Chaos. So, other than that, I'm just going to be continuing to, lurk in the TTRPG community, trying to shout out, all of my fellow creators here, and continuing to act as a Jasper's Game Day ambassador. So, looking forward to enjoying a little bit of relaxation for the holidays.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out, and it was great to have you back again. So,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Let's see, Penguin, we'll go to you next.
Yes, well, I'm mostly just your neighborhood-friendly TTRPG uncle, but I am aiming to, in the future, start publishing my own games. And I am right now working on a Has-Been Hotel Hell of a Boss game, though that is have run into some snags, but in the future I will get back to that. I promise. And you can find me on Twitter at penguin_uncle.
Oh.
So.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm sure it's probably very late where you are, so I appreciate you.
It's very late going on very early.
That's true, yes. Well, I appreciate you staying up extra late and extra early, I guess, and staying to hang out with us tonight. It's very much appreciated, and it was nice to get to know you a little bit.
Yes, likewise.
Yes. Ty!
All right, everybody. I'm Lot Evenstar on Twitter and Twitch. I do some personal game streaming and such, but mostly I just do the whole TTRPG scene over at RF Chaos here on Twitter, here on Twitch, and Roll for Chaos on Twitter. This week we have an epilogue for our Dreams of Silver and Stone campaign to see what is happening next and to set up the next season on Tuesday at 6 Pacific Standard Time. And then we have Misguided Souls on Thursday, 6 Pacific Standard Time, and then on Saturday and Sunday we'll be doing the Honeycomb Sting one-shots. Nick here will be in one, and then we have the From Afar podcast group that's going to be in the other one on Sunday. So keep an eye on those things, and check out my game, Aether and Steamworks, on Drive-Thru RPG. Inexpensive, awesome system, if I do say so myself. Yeah, I'm not tooting my own horn there at all. It does feel nice to have 2 successful Kickstarters. So,
I know. It's exciting.
Right.
It's very exciting. And he's not wrong. It's a very great system.
Yes, I'll gladly toot that horn all day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, highly recommended as someone who sponsored or who backed both Kickstarter.
Same. Yes, definitely recommend. So, Ty, thanks for coming on and hanging out, and congrats again on the second successful Kickstarter, and hope things continue to go well, and maybe take a little bit of time to like take a nap or something.
Who needs time?
Atomic Zero.
Hi, everybody. Once again, thanks for having me on. This is a great time. I'm Atomic Zero, a variety streamer as well as a TTRPGer. Currently in prep to do a new show after the new year that's going to be hosted, at least initially, on my channel, which is twitch.tv/Atomic Zero. It's going to be a futuristic sci-fi fantasy version of 5e, which is the Esper Genesis system. The lovely Wolf's Blood is one of my cast members in that. We actually have a casting call open for anyone who wants to have the opportunity to, join a long-term TTRPG game that will be broadcasted. You can check out my Twitter for the information, which is TTV_Atomic Zero. And I will be playing in one of Ty's lovely one-shots at the beginning of December, actually. So also very excited for that. Yep. It says December 5th in the Discord title, so...
December 5th.
December
5th. I have too many of those running. I'm sorry.
I know, you're fine. I only have one to worry about. It's easy.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming to hang out tonight, Atomic. It was nice to see you again.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. And Brian.
All right. I'm Brian, otherwise Alec_Zam on like every social media thing. Twitter, Instagram. I have my own Patreon. I am a pro DM who runs 12 to 15 games a week. So I offer weekly sessions and things like that. I just came out with my supplement, Treasures of the Pirate Court, which is 55 pages of just pirate content for 5e, including a bunch of adventure seeds, stat blocks, player options. I have amazing art that my wife at Nina Coffin on Twitter did for it. And I'm actually holding a giveaway on my Twitter right now. So if you look at my pinned tweet, you'll see all the information. But it will tell you that I'm offering a free one-shot that I will DM for you. And I'm having 3 select winners in all the comments. I'm going to give away a free copy of the supplement as well. So I do a ton of homebrew, and I run a billion games, and I'm always available to offer either of those to whoever is interested. But this has been an absolute blast. I was really thrilled to be on here.
Awesome. Well, yeah, it was great to get to have you on and get to chat a little bit. So it was great. I'm glad it worked out. And
Yay.
yeah. And I am Gamer Mom Luna. For those of you who are joining in a little late, that's who I am. I am the host and creator of Tales from the Tavern. We're here every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Of course, I say that now. We will not be here the night of Sunday the 28th. I am taking that week off to celebrate Thanksgiving with my family. So I will be away most of that weekend. And then we'll jump back on and we'll do some more stuff before Christmas. And coming up this weekend on November 20th, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern right here, will be a one-shot with me, Amber, the Space Jamber on Twitter, if you know her, Wolf's Blood, and Bees is going to be in it, Big Bees is going to be in it, and it's going to be DM'd by Matt, aka Dungeon Matter. It is a system that he created called Crashlands. It is not available for sale, but we're trying to convince him that it should be, and because if nothing else, you get to roll a dice to create a hat. And so therefore I am sold. So that'll be live here at 8 p.m. We're really excited about it and really looking forward. We'll have all the details going up on Twitter this week. So if you forget, that's okay too. And currently booking guests for anybody who would like to come on and chat TTRPG and other related nonsense with me. We are booking for January and into 2022, so feel free to reach out and let me know if you're interested. And I think that's it. I think that's everything I got tonight. So we're going to go raid our friends over at Indigo Chameleon, who are playing some Dungeons and Dragons tonight. And we will see you all in another week. Have a great night, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.